This is Linda Favela. Psalm 146 is 10 verses, mostly praise to Yahweh, with a couple of comments about man thrown in. It's easy to understand. Verse 1. Praise Yah. Praise Yahweh, my soul. While I live, I'll praise Yahweh. I'll sing praises to my God as long as I exist. Don't put your trust in princes, each a son of man in whom there is no help. His spirit departs and he returns to the earth. In that very day his thoughts perish. Happy is he who has the God of Jacob for his help, whose hope is in Yahweh his God, who made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that's in them, who keeps truth forever, who executes justice for the oppressed, who gives food to the hungry. Yahweh frees the prisoners. Yahweh opens the eyes of the blind. Yahweh raises up those who are bowed down. Yahweh loves the righteous. Yahweh preserves the foreigners. He upholds the fatherless and widow, but the way of the wicked he turns upside down. Yahweh will reign forever, your God, O Zion, to all generations. Praise Yah. Comment, that psalm is easy to understand, so our comments will be mostly for the purpose of dwelling on it and reiterating it. In verses 3 and 4, don't trust even in the finest of mortal men because they fail. Quote, don't put your trust in princes, each a son of man in whom there is no help. His spirit departs and he returns to the earth. In that very day his thoughts perish. End quote. In a political race, one candidate may be far preferable to the others, but don't think of any of them as the answer. Don't put your trust in princes or any mortal man for that matter. Rather, in verse 5, happy is he who has the God of Jacob for his help, whose hope is in Yahweh his God. End quote. After all, in verse 6, he's the Creator. He keeps truth forever. He doesn't break a promise. He executes justice in verse 7, gives food, frees the prisoners, and in verse 8 opens the eyes of the blind. By the way, in the history of the Old Testament, it was unheard of that anyone blind was healed, John 9:32. That was reserved for Jesus, who is Yahweh, Isaiah 9:6, 43:11, and Zechariah 12:1-10. This was in keeping with verse 8 of the psalm, Yahweh opens the eyes of the blind. It seemed like an empty statement in this psalm until Jesus came along and proved it to be true. In verses 8 and 9, Yahweh upholds the weak and vulnerable of all kinds, the blind, those who are bowed down, foreigners, the fatherless, the widows, but he turns the wicked upside down. He'll reign forever in verse 10. Psalm 147 is next.